Harvard Business School writes case studies on Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, titans of industry, people who built empires worth hundreds of billions. So when HBS published a 27-page case study on a football coach, a guy whose team went 4-8 in his first season, it stopped a lot of people cold. That case study is called The Prime Effect. The coach is Deion Sanders, and the number that shocked the analysts reading it: a $96 million program transformed into an $870 million valuation in under 3 years. This video breaks down exactly how that happened, the brand equity mechanics, the revenue cascade, the enrollment explosion, and why every athletic director needs to understand the playbook. To understand why this story is so disorienting, you need to know what Colorado football looked like before Deion Sanders walked through the door. The 2022 season ended 1-11. 1 win, 11 losses. Folsom Field, a stadium that seats over 50,000 people, regularly had patches of empty seats on game days. The program generated about $96 million in total athletic revenue, which sounds like a lot until you realize that put them near the bottom of Power 5 football in financial output. Nationally, Colorado football was basically invisible. No meaningful recruiting pipeline, no TV presence worth talking about, no brand to speak of. Then CU hired Sanders in December 2022, and the shockwave was immediate. Not gradual, not let's see how year one goes. Immediate. His introductory press conference went viral before he'd coached a single snap. Celebrities showed up to spring practice. Every major sports network suddenly had a Colorado story to tell. College Game Day and Fox's Big Noon Kickoff came to Boulder in week 1 of the 2023 season. That had never happened before. Now here's where the business story gets genuinely weird. The 2023 season ended 4-8, 4 wins, 8 losses, including a 6-game losing streak to close the year. By traditional metrics, that's a failed first season. By business metrics, it was the opposite of failure. CU generated an estimated $340 million in media exposure value in that single year alone. That's not ticket revenue, not merchandise. That's the equivalent advertising value of the earned media attention Colorado football received just from being the most talked about story in college sports. ESPN covered it. The New York Times covered it. Deion's son Shadir was on every highlight reel. The Buffs were on national television constantly, and none of that cost Colorado $1 in ad spend. Merchandise told the same story. Online sales of Colorado gear jumped over 1,200% in year 1. Folsom Field sold out every single home game, the first time that had happened in program history. Not in a decade, not since the good old days. First time ever. Now compare that to Lincoln Riley's first year at USC in 2022. Riley is one of the best offensive minds in college football. He went 11-3, posted a Heisman Trophy winner, made the Pac-12 title game, and generated massive recruiting buzz. By every traditional measure, it was a stunning first season, and yet the revenue story, the merchandise lift, the media rights spike, the enrollment bump was quieter, significantly quieter. Riley won more games. Prime made more money. That gap is exactly what caught Harvard's attention, because it tells you something important. The wins didn't drive the revenue. The brand did. And when brand drives revenue independent of on-field results, you're no longer looking at a sports story, you're looking at a business case study. Let's get into the actual numbers, because this is where the case study earns its 27 pages. Total athletic department revenue at CU went from $96 million in FY 2022 to $161.7 million in FY 2025. That's a 67% jump in under 3 years. To put that in perspective, most college athletic programs see revenue grow maybe 5 to 8% annually in a good year. Colorado nearly doubled theirs in the time it takes most programs to make one recruiting class work. Ticket revenue hit a program record of $31.2 million in FY 2024, driven by sellouts and aggressive price increases that the market absorbed without pushback because demand was there. Even when ticket revenue pulled back to around $24 million the following year, that number still represented a floor that didn't exist before Sanders arrived. The multimedia rights deal with Learfield, that's the company that handles Colorado's corporate sponsorships, radio rights, and in-stadium signage, jumped 51% to $8.3 million in fiscal 2024. Before Sanders, CU had never cleared the $5 million threshold that triggers a higher revenue split with Learfield. Once they cleared it, the entire deal got renegotiated. CU locked in a new 10-year extension with substantially better terms, 65% on the first $10 million of adjusted gross revenue, 70% on everything above that. The prime effect got baked into the contract structure itself. Zoom out to the Boulder economy and the numbers get even bigger. Regional economic activity tied to CU football hit $146 million in 2024. Hotels, restaurants, retail, short-term rentals, all of it moving because people were traveling to Boulder specifically for games. When you stack the media exposure value, the revenue growth, and the program valuation gains, total estimated value created for CU approaches $500 million, and the valuation number is the one that tends to stop people mid-sentence. CU football is now valued at $870 million, ranking at 20th among all college football programs in the country. It's the only non-SEC, non-Big Ten program in that tier. Programs that have spent decades building recruiting pipelines, facilities, and conference leverage are watching a school that went 1-11 in 2020 join their financial neighborhood in 3 years flat. Run the CEO scorecard, and the grades hold up. Brand and media exposure, A+. Revenue ROI on the coaching investment, A. Recruiting efficiency and enrollment impact, A+. Sustainability, B+. And that's the honest grade, because on-field consistency in 2025 is the one variable still being answered. The business case doesn't require a national championship. It does require staying relevant. But here's the part that made Ivy League admissions offices pay attention, and it has nothing to do with football tickets. Here's the stat that doesn't show up on any athletics department spreadsheet. CU Boulder received over 68,000 applications for fall 2024. That's a school record, up 20% in a single year. Black and African American applications rose 50.5%. Non-white applications overall rose 29%. Think about what those numbers actually represent. Universities spend millions, sometimes tens of millions, on diversity marketing campaigns, enrollment consultants, demographic outreach programs, and yield initiatives. They hire entire offices of people whose job is to move those percentages by single digits over years. Deion Sanders moved them by double digits in one admission cycle, and he did it by existing on national television every Saturday from September through November. That's brand equity transfer in its purest form. A single hire cascading from football into admissions, from admissions into diversity metrics, from diversity metrics into institutional prestige rankings that universities obsess over. That's the chain reaction Harvard's case study is actually documenting, not the touchdowns, not the recruiting stars, not the win-loss column, the cascade. And this is where the NIL and transfer portal era changes the math for every athletic director and university president sitting in a strategic planning meeting right now. The old model was win first. You build a winning program, exposure follows, donations follow, maybe applications tick up slightly. That cycle takes a decade minimum, and it depends entirely on beating other teams on the scoreboard. Prime flipped it. Brand first, culture first. You generate attention. Attention generates media value. Media value generates sponsorship revenue. Sponsorship revenue funds better NIL packages. Better NIL packages attract better recruits. And the whole system compounds, with or without a perfect record. The ROI outlasts any individual season, because the underlying asset being built isn't a team, it's an identity. Lincoln Riley's approach at USC wasn't wrong. 11 wins in year one is a genuine achievement, and the on-field product delivered. But the revenue story stayed mostly inside the stadium. Prime's story went everywhere. Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business School, hotel occupancy reports in Boulder. Riley proved you can buy wins. Prime proved you can build an empire. That's what every business school is actually studying when they open that 27-page HBS case. Not football strategy, brand equity mechanics, the compounding ROI of attention, identity, and institutional alignment. And the fact that it happened at a school that went 1-11 the year before is exactly what makes the case worth writing. The Prime effect isn't a football story, it's a brand equity case study that happens to involve shoulder pads. A $96 million program became an $870 million valuation by betting on attention over wins, and Harvard took notes. If you want more sports business breakdowns like this, the next video is right here. Subscribe if this one was worth your time.